So, welcome to the AI Institute, Broward College, Conversations with Educators. My name is Rick McCawley. I'm your host here, and we're here to empower human educators with AI tools. Tonight's episode is not Student Speaks. It's actually a little bit more fun. It's about how to create an experience in education using artificial intelligence. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to catch you up with what's happening in the world of AI as far as my world is concerned. So tomorrow, Friday, is the last day of our AI Institute at Broward College, and we've educated about 200 people, 179, I believe, so far in this group of cohorts. They'll be presenting the work that they've learned, and we're also going on from this point and going to continue to educate all the educators at Broward College, and then go on for all of the personnel at Broward College and start working towards educating everybody in South Florida. So Laura Mathrick and I, she's an English professor from Central Campus and a poet laureate of the city of Coconut Creek, we're teaming up, and we've already started this series of meetings that we're having every other week in Coral Springs and Coconut Creek at the Regional Chamber of Commerce meetings. So we did one already on April 11th. It was fantastic. We got about 35 people who came out to take a look at this. And it's basically an overview of what AI does, what it will do for you as a business. So we met people from plumbers to florists to lawyers, city commissioners, mayors, etc. All came to the meeting. We're looking forward to the next meeting being even more about business and how business can prepare themselves for the upskilling and reskilling that's going to be necessary over the next few years. About 6 years, 30% of every one of the jobs in America is going to go away. It's done that before during the internet age. You don't remember perhaps Blockbuster, beepers, all the different, even going back to the dial-up phones, and cell phones didn't exist that long ago. Well, the AI age, the only big difference is that it's happening a lot faster. In fact, in about a year, we're doing 15 years of what the internet did and impacted us. So the urgency to want to get educated, to learn, adapt, and innovate is my mantra that I always say. We need to learn what it is. We need to learn how we need to adapt to it, and then innovate in new ways. And especially I want to help educators empowered for that purpose. And businesses too. So we're coming April 25th again to Coral Springs, and we're going to do another thing all about AI. And it's from 8:30 to 10 o'clock, so it's a nice long bit of time. And we get to sit individually, and there's going to be workshops where you're actually going to have something actionable on the way out. We set up a whole social media campaign for florists for Mother's Day coming up in just a few minutes. It's quite exciting to kind of see what you can do so quickly with these tools. So we're going to do the same on May 9th and then May 30th. May 30th, we're going to have a panel discussion. We hope to have a few different people, so we have some different ideas coming at you. So not only are we educating educators, but we're also adding a whole new set of tools, and we're outreaching to the business community, all South Florida. Anybody who is alive and breathing needs to know how to navigate the space, because it's going to affect you. If you're an Uber driver or you work in a call center, you're pretty much out of luck and out of a job real quickly. You can upskill yourself, and then you can be in charge of maybe an AI version of what would be a giant call center with hundreds of people, because the voices are getting so good. Well, there's one other person, in fact, two people I'm going to talk about tonight that are kind of exciting. One is Noelle Russell. She's an MVP for Microsoft in AI leadership. She started her own AI leadership after having worked for everybody, basically Microsoft. She is one of the creators of Alexa. She is also just an incredible, passionate leader. As you can see here, this is just some about her. This is her website. She lives in South Florida, so she's a friends and family kind of situation. She has a once a month seminar at North Campus of Miami-Dade. So take a look for her, Noelle Russell, everywhere, on LinkedIn especially. She has her own website and blogs. And actually tomorrow morning, after our event in the morning at Broward College, she has a free leadership conference at noon going till about 2 o'clock. So we're going to hear more about that soon. She's a really dynamic speaker all across the world. She's been on the nightly news, PBS, Boston Globe, MIT, Sloan Management. You name the place, she's there. And you can see at the bottom, she has been speaking like crazy at least twice a week, literally around the world, advocating. She knows how to build the models. She knows how to utilize it for business. And I presented with her, luckily, 4 times already at the PI events, which are about programming, but also at her AI Institute events that are the first Saturday of every. Yeah, now it's telling me I have another meeting at 10 minutes, and now guess I just can dismiss it. Let's see what happens. Okay. All right. So yeah, so she's a dynamic speaker. I'm going to have her. Now, while I was at it last week, I was just checking out EduAid. I think you guys had a chance to take a look at it last time I was talking. This is the product. What does it do? It is an AI specifically made for educators. It is what we call a teacher assistant. And you can see what it can do. Everything from creating a rubric, a lesson plan, going into just everything. So here's a quick little guide. You can see the lesson sheet on the right there. This is to teach college level class in basic photography, and it's the exposure triangle. It can go off to help you with quizzes, elaborated analogies, and it has its own chatbot built in. Well, the guy who built it and the CEO of the company is this man, Thomas Thompson, and he will be coming on the show and speaking hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. We might have a conversation offline first and then bring him in to take a look at where you get a chance to talk to him yourself. And he was a middle school teacher, still is, and he just thought, along with a bunch of his friends, he's got some amazing credentials and a lot of great friends. He started this company just to assist educators. Now, we got to realize that large language models that we've been used to talking about are things like ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot, etc. Those are the big ones out there. There are ones that are popping off of that. In fact, we'll see a lot of open source ones. There's about 1,000 language models or bots, we might call them, which use those large language models as a starting point to plug in and then go off and do specialty tasks like assisting educators. Also, tutors would be like Khan Amigo is that exact same type of product at the Khan Academy. So this is what the first episode of this show was. I hope to do 10 episodes, and then my hope is to edit them down so that there's about 50 3 to 5 minute long episodes on each one of these subjects. And then that will become the corner point of my AI Institute that I'm putting together to help educate both business people, educators, and all kinds of people across the globe. Just kind of helping us navigate the space of how to use these tools, best practices, and ways of working. So we talked about its impact. What is it? We talked about chatbots and tutors. We talked about tools, types of prompts. In fact, tonight we're going to have a little bit of fun. That was episode 1. Episode 2 went into copyright and bias and job loss, all the fears, all the horrible and potentially positive things, actually, a lot of both. Because without our guidance as human beings, AI is really not doing anything on its own. It is a car that we get to get into and go find a job or change the world or get it drunk and drive off the cliff. And hopefully we help that not happen. The downside scenarios are replete across imagination. So we want to know about them and how to avoid them and see if we can help be part of the positive actions that you see. The third episode was about human-centric education and tools. And along the way, I'm going to be bringing up a couple of tools. We're going to talk about perplexity tonight with a student here who we use that in the classroom to show you how you can use it in a test case. GPT Store Humane, which is an empathetic AI voice, which has a wonderful way of understanding how you're saying things, what your tonality means, and then responds to you appropriately. Turbo Learn, which we'll learn about, which is great for students if they're taking notes. It's already being used at Duke and Princeton University and MIT and Oxford, etc. EduAid, as we just talked about. Then the last episode was about the syllabus. How do we craft it? How do we make sure AI stays in its lane? How do we make sure students understand how they use it? And how do we open the communications between us as educators and our students so they know that they can take advantage of this great, amazing tool without shortcutting their quality education? So research again, these are the same things we talked about again and again. So tonight, here's what we got. Just today, Meta announced and opened up, if you go right now into Facebook, you can generate images right in Facebook. If you go to meta.ai, you can also generate images, and you have a ChatGPT 4 level quality AI for free. You can also install it on your local hard drive, which is extraordinary when you think about it. So this is brought to you by the folks at Meta. So stay tuned. We're going to demonstrate that tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about EduAid, but I want to make sure we end up talking about it. What I want to do is help you all help me formulate the questions for the EduAid CEO. So when he does come here, we have some really sharp questions that we can ask him. What's your product do? How does it work? But also, what's the future plans? Maybe we can advise him of what we'd like to see in that amazing tool. I'm certain that eventually the company is going to be bought up by one of the big giant majors because it's a need set that's definitely there. So EduAid definitely is a conversation for either next week or the week after. I plan on doing this as long as I'm having fun. Thank you, everybody, for understanding tonight. I canceled by mistake one of the meeting times and dates that you all had links to. So I help, if you know of anybody else that would like to attend, just copy and paste the link so we can continue on. I've given both Josh and Anhil access to invite people to it as well. So if you can bring them in. This is all going to be recorded, as you can already see on my Rick McCawley YouTube page. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are up there. Episode 4, I'm going to spend a little bit more time editing because there's some parts that need to be kind of taken out of it to shorten the length, make it worthwhile. Yeah, feel free to invite people, but all of this is going to be recorded, so we have that set up properly. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Firefly. You can see what I've been doing with it lately. Adobe's Firefly is basically the underlying AI technology that allows all the Adobe products to be able to text to image, to do all the things Photoshop does in taking out, adding parts of the image. You can see even with my face, oh, great. You can see even with my face that that we've got all these variations based upon a structure of my face, and then the prompts that I give and the style that I ask, you can see is quite fun. So that's got to be a fun little side trip we're going to make today. We're going to talk a little bit about TurboLearn and kind of what it does and show some demos. And then we have with us Sebastian. You're still there, right, Sebastian?
Yes, I'm still here, Professor.
Awesome. So he's going to show off the work he just finished up from last week's conversation about an infographic about a T-Rex. And we're going to show you the steps in which he used to do it the same way a National Geographic illustrator would create such an infographic. And the job he did is spectacular. But by using AI to gather what the scientists in the real world would have gathered for Sebastian to work on such a project, but it allowed us to do it in the classroom without having an incredible scientist for National Geographic feeding us the information. We were able to research it, get it, check it, verify it, and then create the infographic you see there at the bottom. And then here's the last part. All during this, I want to have some fun tonight. So I'm going to stop after everything. I'm going to be demonstrating throughout this entire process. So I'd like you to be ready for the prompt battles at the end. You can see there's 16 prompt ideas that I have for you here tonight. And you can see there are some new ones. So we're going to talk about the new stuff that just came out, including Adobe products, including Adobe Premiere, which is announced already that they're going to have Sora built into generating images within Premiere, and runway model and other video, text-to-video models built into Adobe's product, Adobe Premiere. It's about to change the planet if you're into video, special effects, or anything like that. It really is a big deal. And then that last thing I just talked about, the prompt off, here's what I want you to take a look at. Now, you all know 1 through 10 is pretty much what I've talked to, and I've talked about that before. We started to talk about number 11, which is relevant history, art, and philosophy in modern times. So I've actually taken things like Harry Potter and have it basically as a talking point to think about what philosophies are inside the stories of Harry Potter. And I've also created a humorous way to do it, gamifying. I just went through a seminar yesterday on LinkedIn about gamifying the teaching experience. So the main focus of tonight, and this is what I want you to kind of think about while you're watching me demo all this cool stuff that you can go back and watch and whenever you want, is that I want you to think about how do we create an experience of the classroom for our students? We're challenged because in the past, we just say, you need to know this, this, and this, and then you check off that they learned it. We never have really been fully, well, the great teachers, which I know you all are, have always been about let's get the student motivated, excited about being here. We've got to compete with games. We've got to compete with entertainment 24/7. That's a lot more exciting than learning about old dead guys in philosophy, right? So we got to make it relevant to the modern day, even talking about other scenarios that we talked about. So I'm going to have a conversation with Josh about the things we've already talked about. And also, Josh, if you look at your email, I sent you about 10 new things that are I'm really excited about. We'll also talk about a conversation I had with Steve Jobs, which had me in absolute tears and really feeling like I don't know. That's another conversation. So humor, I did a PSA about getting a vasectomy as a rap song. It turned out really good. And I'm looking for somebody that will record it as a PSA for Planned Parenthood. I think it would be pretty awesome. And then scenario prompting. So we want to do maybe a service learning project. So we want to create up a scenario for a company, and I'll demonstrate one of those that I've started to experiment with. My goal is to continue this effort, but I think the next step is this. Every time we go into the classroom, we have to create a new and different experience for ourselves to keep our life exciting, right? And also for our students as things change so quickly. You can see that Sora, which was just a couple of weeks ago, that took a paragraph of text and created a motion picture worthy 1 minute scenario, and it's already been made into almost feature-length movies just by texting. It's actually being used by a bunch of people in Hollywood as we speak to generate movies. There's already been short movie festivals around the world. The future is different than we imagine, and we have to adapt ourselves constantly. This is going to be just kind of an amazing thing as we imagine our way into the future. Service learning, multidisciplinary prompts. I was inspired because my ex-wife was in a class that was taught by a geology professor, by a film professor, and a political science professor. And they used Lawrence of Arabia as the foundation for the class. Start to think about that just a minute in your head. Her degree was in multiple disciplinary education. I think this is a very rich environment for a jazz musician to understand the history of where the music comes from, how it was made, to understand, so from a history perspective, from a philosophical perspective, from a musical perspective. When you perform, you embody all these things about our humanity. So we need to start thinking about the conversations our students can have with philosophers who are dead, with people in history like Martin Luther King or Steve Jobs or anybody else. Imagine that we can create scenarios where we can solve homelessness in the classroom as a service learning project, where we get young minds to imagine what their future might be about, and then send them on a journey as their guide on the side, seeing what's possible to be that inspiration in the classroom that we all know we want to be. And then creating GPTs and other things. So we'll talk about that as well. So since the last meeting, this is a document I found on LinkedIn, and we talked about what do you put in your syllabus. So here's just a really kind of nice back and forth. One thing you should do when you look on my YouTube page, where the images are, well, all the videos are, in each one, I put the PowerPoint presentation as a PDF attached to it. So download it right there. Episode number 3 has all 4 of the first episodes. If you just go to my YouTube page, please subscribe and like. I do want to get more people to kind of help me out. I'm not doing this for the money, but I would like to make it worthwhile and reach as many people as I possibly can. And I think going forward, I want to have more and more bigger name celebrities like Noel and Tomas come on and talk about this because I really want to be, like, have some fun with this. And really, it's a clubhouse for me. And thank you all for coming on this journey with me. I certainly will shut up in a few minutes so you guys can speak as well. But here's some really interesting things. I think that it's appropriate to understand where we're going to use it, AI, I mean, and then where we have the responsibility, we need to educate the student as to where that line is. I think this is a pretty good start. So here's a way to think about it. Okay. And then this is the list that I made that I handed you all a couple of weeks ago. Same list, same stuff. I haven't changed anything. I'd love to get your back and forth about this and how you specifically are writing your own permitted actions. And then also, oops, seem to have a loose little cannon going here. And then what are the exclusive responsibilities of your students? About empathy and hypothesis testing and original thought and emotional expression, engagement, strategy. There's some cool stuff in here. Stuff that we sometimes don't think that we're trying to teach, or perhaps we haven't figured out a way to teach it before. Now we've got a little more time on our hands, especially with the teacher assistant that we just saw, to think about these higher level thinking processes. So as you've seen before, I keep going back to this list of autonomy and lifelong learning and agency and ethical responsibility for the students. This is their educational mindset. This is your goal, too, to make them be inquisitive and problem-solving agents on their own behalf, because we're only with them for a short period of time. All right, keys to the car, we talked about that before, so I'm going to skip through this a little bit faster. Signature worthy, making sure that it's signature worthy, and I'm going to use Sebastian here with his permission, is a little bit of a test of this idea, and I think it's a very successful one, and it might be a way for you to judge how you're working with your students and getting to this place where we're not using it to supplant the education or our role in the process, nor are we undercutting the educational process for the student, but we're making the work signature worthy, making their work stronger, more autonomous, and driven by the student, which I think is the goal of all of us. Okay, so research tool, I'm going to go back to Perplexity. Just one thing to be perfectly clear, because I'm not sure I've made it perfectly clear so far. Almost all the agents are large language models. They are like a giant book with a cutoff date. After last year, around November, they don't know what happened in the world. The way they find it out is they're trained sometimes continuously. Sometimes they have a separate connection to the internet. Almost all the applications, though, are tenuous and poor connections to the internet. That's why we're getting hallucinations. Perplexity is not like that. It has more than 5 different search engines. You can see here, when I ask a simple question, here are all the sources of that information. Here is all the more information that we can get over here. Here's videos about that same subject, and you can actually generate images within it. Me personally, I'm paying the $20 a month to get access to this because it's really worth it for me, especially since I'm, in the education sphere. So Sebastian, can we get you to come on for just a second?
Yes, I'm here, Professor.
Okay, so Sebastian's job, like all the students in Illustration Design 2 class, we've done an editorial illustration, a step-by-step illustration, and one of the most difficult is an infographic, because we have to go out and find, you can see, I ask each of the students to go out on the internet and just come up with 3 ideas. I think, Sebastian, in your case, you came up with a dinosaur, then you thought about doing an infographic about
Orca whales,
orca whales. And what was your third idea? I don't recall.
about ulcerative colitis.
Okay. So ulcerative colitis. I mean, these are three things that requires kind of a science degree in a way. And the scenario I give them is this. They get hired by National Geographic to do an infographic. It's 11 by 17 horizontal, and they have to go out and do the research. So their first job is to create a Word document on the OneDrive, and they come up with three ideas, and they just do a basic Google search. And this is his, on the left, is what he came up with. So the things he found when he was looking for surprising, outstanding facts about T-Rex found and discovered on Apple TV and Prehistoric Planet, right? So sensory abilities, their night skills, abilities, things like that. Well, one of the problems was that some of the stuff wasn't applicable to actually making an infographic. It wasn't as illustratable. And when we're doing an illustration, we want to compare how big is the brain compared to a human brain? How tall is that building compared to a school bus? How, so we need a relative size scale kind of operation. So we did the same type of search using what we just saw, which is perplexity. So by asking perplexity, here was our prompt. And I did this in front of all the students because I wanted him to see how to do it. And I wanted him to mimic this behavior as he did more research than I did. I just started the process. I said, I'm trying to do an infographic about a T-Rex. I want to know the most outstanding facts about it that people might not know about T-Rexes and what they did and how they lived and what their abilities were. And I said I was doing an infographic for a college level class. Okay. So I've said what I'm doing it for, what's the purpose in me talking to you about it. Then I asked, I need to have 10 different things that are illustratable. And then I said, here's an example. I know the T-Rex's brain is a lot smaller than the human, so I'd like to know what the contrast ratio is between the two so I could illustrate it. Okay. So when I do that, I get all kinds of things. What's the top speed of a human? Here we got speed comparison to human. T-Rex, 17.9 miles per hour. Human, 17.7. That means that if you're a human and you're being chased by a T-Rex, you could be eaten. Not by much. You got to make sure that since you're small, you go through a hole, you get in a cave, whatever. So T-Rex can't get it. We've all seen Jurassic Park, right? So that's kind of fun. And then it even suggested illustration idea, a racetrack and a T-Rex and a human in a compass of the Earth show. The relative speed. Okay. So what all of our students have to do is go on the internet and they use it to find a mood board. That is any images that they might use for illustrative sake. He wanted to compare it to the size of a chicken, what was the question about the chicken that you were looking for?
Oh, about how T-Rex and chickens are genetically related to each other.
That's what it was. So it's one of those things. And then, hearing and sight and nose, its ability to sense and things like that. Then we had to figure out how good is its hearing? How good is its sight? By comparison to what? So we think about hawks and things like that. So these were just elements he put together. Then we always have to come up with 5 colors. They have to have enough contrast to be used as foreground, background relationships. Topography, I usually have one typeface for your headline and one typeface for the body copy. The body copy needs to be super simple, so it's super readable because it's about the facts, right? But the top topography can be a little bit more exciting. So then part of it is I have them all draw. Proportionally, the shape you have to deal with, typically 6 to 10 infographics go into making the overall with your sort of hero image in the middle. And this is one of 4 different illustrations that he did of the T-Rex. And being the amazing student that he is, he went out and did this whole 4 of them about the orca as well, which were really good. And he can really draw. So there's not any skills that are being lost here, right? But collecting those 6 to 10 facts in a 1-month period, he has to finish this. So this is what he was able to do because in the past, most of these infographics have lacked a real connection between the details. So there's your human brain versus the T-Rex. And this is not even his final one. This was last week. And I guess you're working on your very, very final one that will turn in next week, right?
Yep, I'm working on editing.
Yeah, so we were taking a look at the extra words that are in here. We're trying to make this really quick read, right? So the brain size, it's 1/3 the size of a human brain. So the proportions don't quite show that there. So some other things that we just found that might be done better. Color palette is nicely done. The breakdown of where things are. I love the speed of the human against the T-Rex, which is amazing to see that. And the length and the height and the inches and the relatives, of the chicken, etc. So that they're cannibals. These are all things that you kind of find out, but then you got to illustrate it, make it exciting to strangers, right? So how did he do, Angel? Has he got this thing down?
It seems very nice. Yes, I like it.
And
Um,
you know,
the only thing, I was listening to somebody recently that says, how do we know what noise they make? And how would you know what color they wear? Because there is, that
no,
those things are not preserved,
right,
for all we know, they could make sounds like a chicken, but in the movies it's always terrorizing the sound,
yeah,
because birds have all kinds of sounds. None of them sound the same. Even mockingbirds that imitates
right.
you
I
don't
remember
sound like the same, but
Jurassic Park, they took the bone or the throat, I guess, and they blew wind through it. And it was for a different animal, of course. And so they kind of simulated it. I imagine AI might be able to reconstruct from some of the knowledge that we have and actually make the sound. Did you know that right now, with just a minute recording of your voice, they can tell you whether you've got type 2 diabetes or not? This is
wow.
AI's ability. The same way they kind of figured out that dogs can sense cancer. And so they've reversed engineered that idea. So there are ways that are counterintuitive to how we think right now that potentially we could think different and come up with some answers that are actually efficacious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how they it used to take, I don't know, several years to come up with one protein configuration. And using
Right.
AI, they produce every possible protein. And now they're even kind of, like you mentioned, reverse engineering other possible proteins that we haven't even think about it. And
Right.
even looking at antibiotics, because they found that there are some antibiotics that work in certain organisms, but then there are some chemicals in between that
Right.
could be antibiotics that are not per se antibiotics. In other words, it will kill bacteria, but they're not produced by living organisms. There are other chemicals in a group in there. And that
So,
was discovered using AI.
yeah, I think it's sort of so if you were to say in the last 10 years, how far has science come from how old were you when you started being interested in science?
I was a kid. I
So
always
it's
liked
been a few
science.
years, right?
I
Yeah.
used to collect frogs. I used to have all kinds of animals. But certainly since that, I was probably first time I remember having interest, probably about 8.
And then,
But since then, I mean, when you look at the advancement of science, when I first went to college, they were taking computers with cardboard. Remember those, the little holes out of the department, and they
the
bought
punch card, yeah.
mainframes.
Yeah.
Yes. By the time I finished college, the mainframe was replaced
Wow.
by regular computers. My first computer was a Commodore 64. Remember those?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then that whole race about computer exponential growth. And so here we are, a year ago, I remember you starting talking about AI, and I was like, yeah, let's look at that. And they were talking about ChatGPT. And then the next thing we know is like, this is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like you mentioned, there's big players and there's little players. And the little players are finding a little niche where to do specific things. Like the other day, I was reading
Yeah.
there's a new AI for law. Because
Yes.
I don't know if you remember when
Yeah.
ChatGPT came out,
Yeah.
some attorneys like, well, let's use this and write up.
Oh,
Uh, uh,
he got disbarred because he didn't double fact check everything, right?
that's
So
right. No, well,
that's
they didn't get this bar, they got sanctioned. So what he needed
yeah.
to do was to publicly admit that he did that and then
Ooh.
teach other people why it wasn't a good idea to do it. But it was close to beating this bar. Yes.
Can you imagine you're a physicist and you make one of those mistakes, or a biologist, or someone who's making a new drug? So yeah. So, but the change that's happening, which I'm really happy about, and this is why educators need to be deep into the woods understanding this, is hallucinations and biases can be engineered out if humans watch and are critical thinkers, right? So there's all this creative stuff. So I could imagine designing using the modeling and the materials, reconstructing the entire animal. In fact, there is a project right now that's reconstructed our entire atmosphere on Earth, so it can simulate all weather patterns in real time. And then being fed the data from all the satellites and all the weather stations and everything else, it keeps up with everything simultaneously. So we've replicated our model of our Earth, and we can predict up to like minutes away what's going to happen next, wherever you are on the planet, which is kind of cool. So if you think back to knowing that you're driving down the road and all of a sudden your phone tells you there is a 20-minute block up ahead. It's caused by this. And how did it calculate that? I mean, we've had that for a long time. We kind of take it for granted. And it says, here's a better route. It's going to save you 10 minutes. So it knows pretty much to the minute when you're going to get somewhere. And then when you're not, it knows, because satellite dishes, all those people in front of you were sitting there for a while. It noticed the geolocation of each one of those people, fed it up to the satellite, and then, took from that and figured out that there's 500 people stuck in a 50-foot long place on the road, and there's a car up ahead, and it knows all that. Then it can tell you exactly what to do about it. So I can imagine certainly we will know what a T-Rex sounded like. If not, probably somebody's going to take some DNA and try to remake it, I guess, too. Maybe that Jurassic Park is not so far away. I don't know.
Well, they're trying to do that with mammoths.
The
They
woolly
found some
mammoth,
DNA.
yeah.
Yes, they
Yeah.
found some well-preserved ones in the Arctic Circle. So
Yeah,
of course, my comment about that is, didn't you guys watch Jurassic Park?
Exactly. So I mean, that's it. We need to watch Terminator. We need to watch Jurassic Park. We need to watch Her. We need to watch all those shows, because that's our first draft of history right there. Science fiction is now our first draft of history, and we got to figure out if we want to go there. So we get back to the signature worthy. Let me see if I can get this thing going in the right direction. Okay, so this just happened yesterday. I saw this. Can you hear this?
No, there's no
I
sound.
don't think I can hear.
When you share it, you gotta click share sound with it.
Okay,
Otherwise it
so
won't.
what it's doing is it's just people at a soccer game, but he's actually overlying a real soccer game in motion and tapping on people and seeing their statistics in real time.
Nice.
Pretty cool. All right, maybe I need to cut out of this and go share a different way. Here we go. So we get back to the bowl of tape, and here's what the bowl of tape is about. It is a really clever prompt. So when I think about creating an experience for my students, and this is where I want you all to come in. At the end of this, my goal is to sit there and brainstorm. I'll walk you through a couple scenarios about how I think about doing this. I imagine I would love to just sit in. I will sit with somebody in nursing, someone in law enforcement, someone in K-12 education at Broward College, and I want to figure out a way creatively to make a new way of teaching they've never thought of before. And I use this as my goal. And as Josh is going to receive, I have gotten a bowl, and I am right now filling it full of tape. I'm not sure when I'm going to see you next, Josh, but you've earned the first bowl of tape award. And I'm going to call it the prompt award. And Natalie Baumgardner, who was with us last week and talked about this, is the student that came up. So fourth grade teacher, art teacher, this is what she left for her students. And when she got back, this is what they gave her. It's autonomous learning. It is putting an exciting, innovative, creative act of a prompt, a start point, if you will, and allowing the students to autonomously achieve collaboration, cooperation, decision-making, engineering, play, having fun doing it. So this is the gamification. This is my goal. My job, to me, is being a creative person all my life. I want to come up with bowls of tape just using text that will create prompts that's a starting point for you to go on a journey of education, for your students to do it themselves, to autonomously have fun and learn. I think that when we knocked out creativity in the 3rd and 4th grade, when we told them to sit down and shut up and take a nap right now because we didn't have to want to deal with their behavior issues, we forgot what we're there to do, is to get them to take care of this new world. Now, I hope one of my students is going to fix this leg problem, because that's kind of an issue in this picture. I should spend some time in Photoshop before I put this image up there again. So these are the things we want to amplify it. So how do we do it? So creativity, ideation, iteration. So you saw that just knowing how much a brain is different in a T-Rex, now you get to go off and ideate and iterate and figure out. Now, the shape of a T-Rex's brain is completely different than I imagined. And once he found the illustration, he had to figure out, well, how do you show the difference? And is it really that? And so we have some things to work on. And then critical thinking, right? Which one of those 100 different things about the T-Rex is illustratable or important to illustrate, perhaps? Collaborating with other people, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, you get the idea. So these are all the things we want to do, and we want to use the bot for personalized learning, on demand, 24/7. Do you have time to answer every single question? I mean, Sebastian and I have gotten to where we always go through a question and answer question at the end of a class just to make sure he understands what he's supposed to do. And it's fantastic. It comes up to me because a lot of students don't do that, and they come in the next day not having done the right thing. So that's what's great about students like Sebastian, and he's curious. He wants to do really well, and I love to be that person that excites those students to get them, to even want to come at 8 o'clock at night where they could be doing something else. And thank you for that, Sebastian. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome, Professor.
Yeah. So here are the ones that I've been trying out lately. And so here's one about Nietzsche in social media. So I had Nietzsche write a look at social media, politics, and propaganda today, and talk about it. And I asked ChatGPT to actually have him do a social media post. So we must become more. So it actually created the hashtags and the emoji at the end where it says Friedrich Nietzsche, but way more chill, right? The will to power. Perhaps the answer lies not in outrage, but in creating our own values. We can become the Ubermenschen of this digital age. Use social media as a tool, not a master. So, of course, what I need to do is find out what Ubermenschen means. And then, so friends, we have peered into the abyss of your timelines lately, a never-ending stream of opinions, outrage, manufactured outrage. This is not progress. This is the herd mentality amplified, right? So question the dogma. So I'll ask Josh, is this on target to what Nietzsche might have posted in the social media post about politics and propaganda in social media?
Well, it looks like it's making some good points. I think that's one of the interesting things. It's like when you ask it about Nietzsche, it pulls up what are some key ideas and points and looks for those links. And so yeah, I think it's making some interesting points, some good things to think about.
So the whole idea is it's a relative prompt. So it makes something relevant to today's student, right? So talking about social media might be a thing. Now, you shared last time, I think, a story about a student who was playing soccer or something.
Yeah, we had talked about, and this is why what you just showed was sort of interesting to me, because I know so many folks are into soccer, just like what you were seeing there. So that's a practical tool they can use to see who's on the field playing, right?
Right.
Which
Oh,
can be
yeah.
helpful, especially if you're in the stadium, because if you don't have binoculars, it can be tough to see who's way out there.
Yeah, you might as well stay home and watch it on TV, right? Because at least there you got a commentator, you got all the numbers in the jersey, you got a close-up view, you got slow motion replay. When it's almost not as good of experience if you're there in the stands. I mean, the loud people and the violence potential, you know, there's other reasons. I mean, maybe you love beer and you just like being amongst all those people. I think that's something too, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a different experience, but I mean, I can see how that's helpful in that way. But I have a student, I have several students who are soccer fans all the time, wearing the jerseys, and that's my sport of choice too. When watching a sport, it's international soccer, and so so the idea is, you know, there aren't always direct connections or links that you can make between something like philosophy and soccer. So I think about it, and I have some of them in mind, but now I know that by using AI, I can make those kind of links like you did there with Nietzsche and social media in a matter of minutes. And then those can enter into the conversation with students, or if there's someone who has that interest, that might be a way for them to take a next step or to have an inroad that they can take to explore a topic or a thinker in a way that aligns it with their interest. And so when I asked some initial questions to make some connections, I thought it generated some really interesting points. For example, like the role of the referee and the importance of having a fair-minded person to oversee the rules of the game, and making connections with philosophy related to that, for example. So it was very, it was very interesting.
I'm going to try to see if I can. Oh, there's the advanced settings. Okay, so I want to multiple participant. Oh, can share host only. Okay, so I'm sharing there. Where do I go to set up those extra settings? It seems like they weren't there. What I'm trying to do is share my screen. Hey, you can see my screen now, yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
But I didn't see a way to get to the extra settings.
To share what you're trying to share?
Just my YouTube, my Claude, the conversation that I did. You know what? I don't need audio.
I think on the bottom you just scroll on it. There's an option to show more, and it should be, once you select what you're trying to share, it comes up with a little opening where it says, yeah.
So share screen, and then I've got advanced sharing options. I thought there was a place where it just popped up and it said you can share different features. Okay, well, I'll just go on over here. Can you see Harry Potter here? This is what I'm.
Yeah, I can see Harry Potter.
Okay. So what this question was is I said, let me get down to the really good part so you'll see it. So I decided, you know, let's take it to the next level. So I decided what would be interesting if we had a multidisciplinary perspective course using Harry Potter as the connection between it, connecting literature, philosophy, political science, and modern journalism. Graduate level class. So I first started, in fact, I went through, if you looked up at the very beginning, it's going to look at things like the literature professor is going to analyze themes and techniques employed for their relevance in philosophy, political science, and et cetera. And so it basically is, each one of these is going to talk about literature. They're going to talk about themes of self-discovery, hero's journey, storytelling techniques. Philosophy is going to look at the nature of identity, belonging, and the search for meaning. The political science professor would examine the power dynamics in the wizarding worlds, governing structures, and their impacts on individuality. Modern day news is going to discuss that in a modern day context. So one of the ones, so it took every book and it went through and it analyzed it. And here's one of the, here's a couple of really interesting connections, which I thought were really interesting. Here we go. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So in literature, you explore the themes of death, resurrection, and the power of choice in shaping one's destiny. Philosophy, discuss the nature of power, the corrupting influence of the Deathly Hallows, and the moral dilemmas faced by the characters. How are we doing with this, Josh?
Yeah, definitely interesting. I was playing with something related to moral dilemmas there too, so I see even where they could push, you know, to pick one of those points and push on it.
Yeah, so you could actually, and then it does every chapter this way. So discuss the nature of the soul and mortality, the Half-Blood Prince, mortality, ethical implications of the pursuit of power. Then we've got philosophy, discuss the nature of truth, knowledge, and manipulation of information with the Order of the Phoenix. Then the Goblet of Fire, the relationship between competition, fairness, So you remember that's the one where they had the Quidditch match, right? So then my favorite one, though, being a news junkie and a journalist, was the modern story examining Alexei Navalny and his self-sacrifice and ongoing struggle against power oligarchy in Russia. Now, what I could imagine actually doing is, let's say, Josh, you and I taught this class, right? I would be kind of the AI guy, but what I would be doing is prompting. So we had a philosophy discussion. I mean, you would take the philosophy discussion. I would take the part of asking for the AI to introduce the questions of literature and structure. Then I would have it look at a political science perspective and come up with questions. So you could do this foundation with the Matrix movie. You could do it with Lord of the Rings. You could do it with pretty much anything. So we now make it relevant and multidimensional. I've been talking a lot, and I know that Sebastian and my other students are probably tired of it. I love this idea of synesthesia. For those not familiar with the word, it means that you will, give me an example. You take one sense and you turn it into a different one. So I used to go up on top of the roof of my house and watch the sunset, and immediately go inside and compose a piece of music that expressed that sunset. When you're able to do that, you're wiring connections in your brain that are left to right and right to left and all over the place. It's multilateral, multidisciplinary thinking. When my ex-wife took a multidisciplinary doctoral degree and went into a class where the core subject was the idea of Lawrence Arabia, and then you talk about geology, you talk about geopolitics, and you talk about the whole Arab world and the Christian world and all those other complicated things, right? Imperialism so it became this amazing way of thinking differently. So that's kind of where it went. The story of Dobby is sort of interesting, right? So he's the house elf, so he's a slave. So we could look at the history of slavery, ongoing struggle for social justice and equality, right? The literary significance of Dobby's character, especially since it's a British show, right? I mean, the class system. I mean, there's multiple layers of stuff going on. The philosophy of understanding why humans seek to dominate and control others, the moral implications of slavery. Holy cow, that's a whole class and a master's thesis on its own, right? And the political mechanisms that allowed slavery to be institutionalized, perpetuated throughout history, including imperialism and the economic systems built on the backs of enslaved people. So I have a political science degree. That was my first degree from the University of Florida. So I find this really interesting. And then being interested in what's going on today, Dobby's story is seen through the lens of Black Lives Matter. Holy cow, man, this is like, and we could go into biology, I bet you, Anhil, there's a way to take this over there. The hippoglyph, we could take the hippoglyph and figure out how these Crimea or these, multi animals came into being in imagination, but they're actually some animals that are like that. The complexities of octopus are quite extraordinary. Flying dinosaurs. Who knew that dinosaurs were more closely related to a chicken than to a human or even a hippopotamus? So there's this potential that all of a sudden we could think different. So then I started going into even more. So you can see what I actually wrote here. I'm basically talking to it for an hour. Then I asked for draw the contentious area where religion divides as well as classes divide historical lines. Story of propaganda can go through Nazi Germany into the political climate and the use of Fox News and Donald Trump's rise to power by the use of propaganda and anti-news. We could look at 1984, the book, and all of a sudden you've got some real life modern day connections. So these are things that are very human. Only we care about it. But what it does is it keeps track of all those very complex connections on the outside, and then we get to see the relevance of it. So I think the word relevance is really more powerful than I imagined it really was in the beginning. The idea that how do you make dead philosophers relevant today? And we can do it through literature. We can do it through science. We can do it through politics. So we could be a jazz musician and know about slavery and why American jazz was created by Black people who went through this period of time, why the blues is the blues. Jazz is the only truly American form of art. Maybe rap could be one also of musical art that's been created, and it came from a different place. Then you get into conversation, is Elvis appropriating, or the fact that he grew up in that same situation, is he actually being authentic to his upbringing and situation culturally? The fact that he became a lot more popular, made a lot more money off of the idea of it, that's another conversation about appropriation. Is it okay for Eminem to perform rap music when it was born of a different place? Again, the question, did he grow up in a place like that? So are his stories authentic to his life experience? So anyway, anybody else want to jump in on this idea and this train of thought? Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, archetypes. Yes. Patricia, you want to come on and talk? Anybody?
Yeah, I think, remember when at one point we wanted to have multidisciplinary classes that people, what we used to call it, learning communities.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So this basically takes that concept to a bigger place, because you and I can share some prompt, and you can apply it to the arts, and I can apply it to the science. One thing that I was thinking for next semester is to actually create at the beginning of the semester a notebook using the notebook Google
Yes.
app, LM,
Yeah.
with all the content for the student, and then kind of reverse the upside down learning community environment, where they have the information, and now I'm going to give them some questions, and I want them to go out there into the system and find the answers by probing the system, because the
Yeah.
answers are there, and I want them to be curious about different things. And I
Yes.
think that will not only engage with them into the material, but also bring them into different perspective, because now not only they may be looking at a cell as a cell, but they may be looking at a cell as a form of art,
Yes.
or a
Yes.
form of a business,
Yes.
and so we can make the same connections, and because all I care is that they know the cell and the organelles, but if their interest is somewhere else and still fulfill that same objective, then
Yep.
it doesn't matter to me. The problem
Uh,
is, in the classroom, I can only deliver it in one way, because that's the only time that I have for everybody.
Yeah. So here's my thought. You take that idea and then you send them home with a prompt and you give them some pathways to follow. Let me give you an example. I wanted to write a science fiction book. And so I asked, of these science fiction books, The Matrix, Blade Runner, etc. Oh, all the works of Philip K. Dick, which Blade Runner is one of them, and many, many others, which I'm just fascinated. So I ask it to tell me, in those books, do you think that those writers were inspired by philosophy? And so I said, go ahead and tell me what philosophy would have inspired them. And it was down to, Josh, I was like kind of shaking for a minute when I thought about, oh my God, they basically took philosophy and turned it into a science fiction book. And they added science. I remember hearing an interview with Michael Crichton talking about the Andromeda strain and how he basically had lunch every single day with the people at NASA who were thinking about the world of tomorrow and what it would be like. And then he went to the CDC and he literally immersed himself with scientists to figure out, if a particle from outer space came down to Earth, could it kill a whole city? And then how would you be able to figure out what caused it? And who would know that crying would be the thing that would kill it? Sort of So everything was based on science, although it was science fiction. And then we think about Minority Report, we think about pre-crime, and thinking about how could we analyze. So there's actually right now a couple of pre-crime type of things. So by looking at patterns of behaviors, you can actually predict where your next crime is going to happen. AI has been used to geolocate where shots are fired by putting just microphones at different parts of the city and measuring the distance from the gunshot and the timing and everything. You literally down to 5-foot distance, you can tell where the shot was fired from and dispatch someone there. That's kind of insane, but it requires you to think different. It requires you to release all of the base, model of how we think. You can't do that with rote method learning facts, right? So while it's, important to understand the organelle as to what it is, how does that figure in? Could we make a scenario where we compare? Here we go. So there's a guy, Dennis Dutton. I'm a huge fan of his. His whole thing is beauty is based upon biology. So he took the theories of evolution by guess who, and said, let's take a look at how our adaptive nature has been built because of how we are as organisms. So you take this, the beagle and the trip of, why am I losing his name right now? Evolution.
Darwin.
Darwin, thank you very much. Oh my God, I can't believe it. So he takes Darwin and then he applies it to aesthetics. So why does a peacock have the feathers like that to be sexually attractive when they're counterintuitive to survival? In fact, they make them less able to survive. And the fact that they're colorful means they have access to minerals that others don't have. The fact that they're large and healthy is an attractor, so it's a fitness signal, right? Well, when we make artwork of all kinds, so he's got it broken down using those ideas of what is biology and how we reproduce and how we change and we evolve over times as humans, is exactly what we admire in artists. So we admire someone's performance. A rock artist who can get up on the stage and do something no one else has is the sexiest person on earth. Why? Because that's a fitness indicator. They're able, because of their skill set, to be able to provide for a family of whatever, So you get the idea that that's a thinking process that typically doesn't happen very often, where we cross-pollinate our knowledge and we think about things from different perspectives. Literally, to me, this is Steve Jobs' idea of thinking different. The crazy people who can think that's why I was so moved last night when I had a conversation with him for 3.5 hours. I talked to Steve Jobs. I swear I talked to him. I mean, it was just that sentient a process. So anyway, I want to get back to this one here, and comedy. So we want to entertain, right? And so I took the idea, and let's get back to what I think Angel was saying, is you're looking for patterns. So the archetypes, right? Archetypes are patterns that we use to help us structure the thinking about how these archetypes become the hero's journey, etc. So we have to have a hero, then we've got, supporting characters, and we've got, what is the role of Darth Vader as the counter to the hero's journey, etc., etc. And then what does Yoda have to do with this? To teach us these little stories about fear. Fear, it leads to the dark side, it does, So it's these parallel understandings that we have to know how we construct stories, and we have to be human to do it. But we can use the AI to step in when complicated things that we have to research, like tell me some interesting things about a T-Rex, right? So it's the universal theory of education is what I'm really getting down to. And it is that if we cross multiple disciplines, and here's what I also did. So this came from Bill Engvall. He's the guy, if you don't know his comedy, he's a country western kind of comic star, made millions of dollars off. You might be a redneck if, right? So I gave it 5 Bill Engvall stories, you might be a redneck if, and I said, without making any copyright violations, give me 30 more. And it did it in an instant. I did the same thing with the prompts about the 5-word speech by or text baby shoes never worn, for sale, never worn, that, and then make 20 more of those. So it just does it. It knows patterns and it can do that. So now ask it to take the patterns of the brain construction of these cells and the way that they act to attack and create cancer. And then let's look for the patterns and how does that compare to a shark that doesn't get it? And then how does that compare to somebody else? So it's that lateral thinking that Dr. Gruber, who I know, he was actually dying of cancer and started studying sharks as a life's mission, right? Because they didn't get it and they ate everything. So you would think that of all kinds of animals, they would. And so he was looking for that little piece, that thing, right? That's what it does. It does that 24/7 without breaking a sweat. Now, if I gave it, this, so I gave it, if you've ever have a sinkhole, if you've ever seen a sinkhole being swallowed by a house or a small building, right? If you think the best subs on earth are Publix. Oh, my favorite one, the one that I gave it, and then it did the rest. You've witnessed a Florida man story unfold live. You've seen iguanas fall from trees during a cold snap. It did that, and then it said, you put a bra in your car when love bug season arrives. Your pool gets more use than your oven. You have dueling window AC units to survive the summer, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. So here's a fun thing that we can look for patterns. Now we can look for patterns in biology. Now we can look for patterns in storytelling. So we can compare Star Wars to, Dune. I compared Dune to Star Wars. They were done within 3 years of each other. The first one was Dune. And I didn't realize this, but R.R. Martin, who wrote the whole stories of, what's the TV series, right? The Game of Thrones, was inspired entirely. In fact, he took the R.R. Martin from J.R. Tolkien, who wrote the Tolkien books. And if you look at the parallels, which I asked AI to actually compare, they're the exact freaking thing. And the same way with Steve Jobs, and then going back to Dune.
And also, somebody did the same with Star Wars and Harry Potter.
Yes, yes. And so I actually compared all of those with AI. In 1 minute, I had every single person and every character and why that is. So now, if I want to make one based upon these 10 things, I can start writing one. It'll give me an outline how to hit those sweet spots that evidently made, giant hits for you. So that's kind of interesting.
By the way, I counted 11 of those on the funny prompt.
You counted 11 of what?
11 of 15. I have seen 11 of 15.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then the fun thing was I just used this as the prompt in ChatGPT, and this is the image it came up with. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got even the correct flag, pretty much to the ninth degree, And I kept doing it a couple of times, so it took a little bit. So here's another one. So this has come from I ask it to create a scenario that talks about what the future of employment is, because I just watched Jon Stewart and he talked about, like, there was a guy that literally said, I fired 90% of my employees because it's much cheaper to have an AI do their jobs. He literally said,
but that wasn't nice. He should have, like you said, retrain the people and use them for something else.
So
he could have made more money that way, and now he has a bad reputation. The same with the same way, what's his name, Tesla guy.
Yeah,
he did the same thing. I mean, he did. People didn't know they were fired until they couldn't get into the building because the badges were.
Oh yeah, I mean, when he came into Twitter, they were fat and happy. They were a little bit too thick around the middle at that place. So he cut it down to what, 10% of its original people, but then he had to hire half of them back because he couldn't do the job by himself. Anyway, that's another story. But here you go. So Harvard University is famous for doing this, and also the Wharton School. My ex-wife was involved with both. And what they would do is business scenarios. So here's your scenario for the future, right? You're a tech company, and you've got 100 employees. Due to advancements in artificial intelligence, it's estimated that 75% of the jobs at your call center can be replaced by AI technologies. Your mandate, retain 100% of your employees, upskill and reskill them, increase your profitability, measurably improve customer satisfaction, and give all your employees a raise. Now work it out. Make that happen. So can you imagine Harvard University does this? So think about every company. This is a doable thing, by the way, because if you just cut out 75% of your cost, oh, okay, so you bring the people back, but all of a sudden you're getting things done more efficiently. You're going to need somebody when that person gets upset at the AI because it didn't answer to their expectations. You got to at least keep, 30 of your people there just to, when it gets escalated, give me your manager kind of situation. Then you got to make some decisions, right? That's where the human has to come in. But then how could you advance your company? So the idea here is every single company, if you triaged it this way, if you said that here's your scenario, every company in America, and you could pick one, and my business class is gonna do this. It's going to have these things, keep all your employees, upskill and reskill them, make the profits increase, and measurably improve customer satisfaction. The opposite of how we work in America, by the way, but wouldn't that be sweet? And imagine what a student can do with this being their problem instead of just increasing profits. I watched the 60 Minutes thing about Boeing. Oh my God, that's just insane what went on there. And it's all for profits. And they didn't care about the people. They looked at them. So a service learning project. Homeless alleviation, provide support and long-term solutions for homelessness, community engagement, economic revitalization, sustainable development. So I'm going to actually give these prompts to the cities as I visit them, and I'm going to help them use AI to figure out how to solve them. Kind of a scary, but definitely potentially possible. So the Harry Potter, you saw the multidisciplinary idea, and then ChatGPTs and Copilots basically are taking any of these prompt ideas and spread it out over time to figure out how we're going to do these things. So in the example of the Harry Potter book and going through 4 different disciplines with that information, what do they do when they go out and they have to write a paper? So you would go back up to your teaching and learning thing and share that kind of capability. So that's pretty cool. Anybody have some other thoughts they'd like to share about this? Neurodiversity. Yes, Patricia, absolutely. Thank you so much. That's it. That's for sure it, right? A couple other things. If you didn't know this today, this happened. Yes, this is Meta. And if you go over to Facebook and you start to send someone an image, you can come down here and you can put in @ symbol and you can type Meta AI. I don't know if it might not work on the desktop. Okay, let me go back to showing what this is. So here's meta.ai. Try it out today. Just came out today, by the way. This is the website. Just go to it and you can start a new conversation and you can do all this stuff. Oh, 90s trivia game. You want to play one of those real quick or simulate? Oh, I did this already. I did a mock interview for graphic design students. So check it out today. It's free. It's also, get this, open source. What does that mean? You can install it on your machine. It is as good as ChatGPT 4, and it's built into all the Meta products. That means on your phone, in Facebook, in Instagram, in WhatsApp, all owned by Meta. All of those you can prompt. You ask, you go at Meta AI, and it'll pop up and says, "What do you want? Make an image, do all that kind of stuff." So let's play a Trivial Pursuit game. Here we go. 1985, Alanis Morissette was certified 16 times platinum, included the hit singles You Ought to Know and Hand in My Pocket. Anybody want to guess at A, B, C, or D?
I'm going with A.
Going with A. Okay, let's go for it. See how we do. So, I mean, this you could do with your students, right? Jagged Little Pill, that album was defined, released in 1990s. Here's another question. What 90s boy band hit song I Want It That Way was a chart topper in 1999?
A, the Backstreet Boys.
Okay, there we go, Sebastian. Let's see. Yes, correct. There you go. What grunge band from Seattle? Yeah, Smells Like Teen Spirit. I know that one. It's D, Nirvana. I'm going to go for that one. All right. So you get this. Imagine that you do this. I'm not sure what just happened there, but looks like I just lost my connection. Oh, and then here's the really cool part. Let me see if I can get my connection back. It just came out today. So Imagine is built in, and what it does, I'm going to do the this one. Oh, let's come up with something new. What do you guys want to see a picture of? Let's come up with something. Oh, how about an orca dancing the tango? I'd like an image of an orca dancing a tango. And you can notice this is in real time with a purple squid. There we go. And so in real time, as I was talking there, it's actually making it. Then it makes it. And then here's the really, oops, need to stop my oh, there we go. Okay. So it gives you 4. So this is cool. So I like that one. And then guess what else it does? Okay, that is awesome. Okay, I got to download that puppy for sure, right? All right, so let me animate. Ooh. So it's a real-time renderer, and now we've got an animation. We download that and put it on our social media. While I'm there, let me go back over here and let's see if there's any other one. This one looks pretty cool. I like the top hat, though. You can't beat that. Let's animate that. Yes, I'll be up all night tonight. So that just came out today. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so that's Meta. It's in Facebook. You just put @ symbol and then Meta, and then all of a sudden, even in the search at the top. So if you want to, you might notice LinkedIn Learning has it now too. So it'll do a summary of your pages and reports. So this is, 1 year into this, and this one's not anatomically correct, but who can do these things? So, here we are. And again, this is today. And then I asked about the industrial revolutions. So I put in the prompt, and here's the animations that it created for me. Look at the smoke coming out of here. So the conversation was the 5 industrial revolutions. In fact, if I go back one, here's what I had it do. So I said, the proposed, so the first through fourth are here, and kind of standalone computers, and then 4th is computational efficiency, scalable digital platforms, smart systems, sophisticated supply chain. The 5th one, human-centric, fueled by augmentation, expansion of the human intellect, not just machines, cognitive efficiency, evaluating human experiences, metacognition, generative AI. So this is what it says is the next. I just copied and pasted this and then had it go make these images for me. I mean, how cool is that? So imagine what your students can do with this. So as an artifact of their learning, this might be a reward, a gamification, if you will, in the process. So here is questions that you would get. So my prompt to it was, I'm applying for a job for a graphic design position. After 2 years of college education, graphic design, my interest is in branding, social media, management, illustration, and I have a skill set with Adobe Creative Suite and excellent track record of excellent work. Can you send me a list of questions as I apply for these jobs that might aid me in finding the right job with my skill set? And then I added, can you also suggest directions I might go in answering these questions for myself? So there we go. So these are questions that might happen. Can you tell me a little about yourself? And the direction is keep this brief, focus on your education, relevant experience, interest in graphic design. What inspired you to present it? So I hand this to my students preparing for their internship, and they go out and they get the job. And they can sit there and do this all day and ask for different questions. And then they can say, I really hate web design. Can you take a look at my portfolio and tell me how I might edit it so I don't end up getting a job in web design? Or what companies are in South Florida area, or what companies are in California that are hiring right now? And then it can scour the internet and find the exact positions. The fact that it's built into LinkedIn now, and my students have all gone to LinkedIn Learning and they got their certificates, they can prove they have a certification. They have watched, 16 hours of video in Photoshop, plus taken this course, got a degree in it, and then they can go out and then keep on going, So the LinkedIn stuff has taken stuff that would have taken days and hours. Literally half of my class used to be teaching Photoshop. Now I send them a LinkedIn. I said, come back with a certificate. They come back and they know Kung Fu, so it levels up them. It prepares them better. And then if they want to learn social media management, and we don't currently have an active class or video editing, I've told them, look, while you're at it, pick 2 more and get your certificate. you post it on your LinkedIn profile, and then you go there and you set up a watch list of what kind of job you're looking for, what city or even country you want to get it in, and boom, and then have it work on your resume, review it, make corrections, and then submit it. Now it's all about you, the quality, how you put it together, but you'll look like a rock star who didn't misspell a single word. I tell this cautionary tale to all my students. A student went in and she had a portfolio. There were 300 applicants for one job. It paid $65,000 a year right out of college. Her work was absolutely qualified to take this job, right? So she goes in, she shows her portfolio, and she got a call back. Out of 600 people, she was one of 3. And they said, "We're so sorry to tell you, when we reviewed your portfolio, we had 3 misspellings. We cannot have someone working for us that doesn't have the attention to detail." Now, English wasn't her first language. The misspellings that she had were, kind of understandable if you take that into account, but cost her the job. With AI, she certainly would have had that reviewed. And she would have used all the tools, and it would have been a much better place to be, All right, let me stop sharing here for a minute. Oh, some other things that I just kind of want to drop in there. EduAid, definitely. Some things I didn't talk about. Look at all these other skills. So if you guys want to be in the event where I actually have the CEO of this company talk about it, it would be awesome. We take a look at, this is independent practice. So this could eventually, a mock study. So give me a mock study situation. So open a saved resource. So I've got my generated projects here. Here's a lesson seed for a class. And I'm going to load to my workspace. So this is photography basics level, ISO, etc. Right? So I could come here and then I could have this produced into a transformative thing. Like I could transform this into a French, Spanish, generate answer key, right? So I could have it create a test based on this. So this is pretty cool product. And accessibility, here you go, combinations list. So let me find out about those. So I'm not quite sure. I haven't used this enough to really. Has anybody else used this in the group here?
I tried. The only thing, remember how you mentioned it was developed. It seems to me that it's K-12.
Yeah.
I tried to go beyond that, and I think that's the niche that is going for, which is
Right.
very useful, I suppose. But it's not something that, unless you're developing a new course or something like that, will be
Yeah.
something that we will use. But I give it a try just because on the toolkit somebody mentioned it, and I wanted to see what was the response of the system.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a tool that does the job, and I think it has a lot of thought in the process in terms of the different pieces that fit together, especially for K-12, because they have to see in K-12, which really sucks, they have to do lesson plans. And I think this tool is ideal for that. You can generate a lesson plan very quickly, and it will link all the things to your objectives.
That's it. In fact, he is indeed exactly that. He's a middle school sociology, no, something like that. Well, when we talked to him, and I'm having a meeting with him next Friday, and then he said he could either come on the show. I'd love if I can get 3 of you guys to talk. He's looking to expand, and he wants to go to above this grade. I've been working for a long time right now. In my class, we're actually at the point where I'll show you just briefly what we're working on. We're working in our branding class on the last project was AIEDU project, which is basically to create education as a birthright. And what we're producing in that class is based upon Salman Khan's Khan Amigo. Yeah, now it's nice to have Copilot built in here. So there's Copilot as I'm working on this. And then what we're doing is we're looking at competing products. So LinkedIn Learning, Conmigo, how it works. So this is the students' work, and the goal is to produce a co-pilot. And I'll show you what our end result. We looked at Coursera, we looked at Brilliantly, and we're also looking at this product we just talked about. But the students do a competitive analysis, and then we come up with, so Copilot works like this. It's good things for suggesting topics and photo descriptions, etc. You can see what the students have said about it. And then we have created an app. And the app looks like this. This is our mock-up. And we actually have, and the way that, so the sitemap is basically, we're creating a Copilot tutor and a Copilot EDU. So for the tutors for the students, and the EDU is for the educator. And then you make your own tutor bot, which you customize it with your specific needs. And then we have courses that are loaded up. So this is a learning management system, basically. And then we create profiles for each one of the people and the classes that you're taking, so that you as an educator could set up basically exactly what we're looking at there in EduAid, right? We're looking at that for the educator, so they could create all of this content. And then as a student, we get it customized for your learning styles and your accessibility issues. And then your profile gets created. Then you have communications, you have collaborations, master classes, professional development, and we have news and shares and information. So we could have forums for professional development. Workshops like this one would take place within the app. And they have basically designed a tutor Copilot. And then also, this is what it will look like. My goal is actually to get, the bot is always on and always available, never gives you the answer, always is used for checking your work and research and that kind of thing. So, built in, so Copilot Tutor, Copilot EDU. So we're actually looking to get Microsoft to actually make this a real thing. It would take them nothing. Basically, they would just have to adjust it so it never gave the answers for the tutor, and it was loaded up with the kind of stuff that EduAid has in its library. But it would mean a lot of professors looking at this, contributing freely of their knowledge, coming up with solutions and best practices. And then, of course, we're telling the story about this product and give you an entry website. And actually, this is the branding class. So this is all the stuff when you leading to the app, and we tell the story of the app. And this is what the website would look like, showing off what it has going on. So there's upskilling educators and that kind of thing. So what's cool about this, and I'll go into more detail, I'm going to probably do a separate prompt, is this is the 3 personas. In the past, what we typically did is you had to come up with a mission goal. Learn, adapt, and innovate for education's transformative educational initiative that aims to revolutionize the educational landscape by integrating AI into the classroom. Education is a birthright. Prepare students for jobs and the life of tomorrow by providing them with essential skills and mindsets necessary for the future. 2 AI chatbots, Educator Assist, and Bot and Tutor Bot for students, customized to support different learning needs and styles 24/7. So then we typically have, here's what we're trying to do with it, but always we have to come up with 3 persona groups. So we used AI to do this. What we used to do in the past is we'd say, we think the college person is this age, and we make up a story. But what we did this time is we actually did real number research. What's the average age of a student in college? 24.2, by the way. What's the largest demographic of rising students? Male, female, Hispanic, Asian, etc. And it's Hispanic is the growing population. And then we said, what's the average age of professors at college? 45. Angela Brooks. Then, so all of this is AI specific, using real research that the students drove that research into the direction to come up with these answers. And then we said, who's really going to use this product? It's going to be the lifelong learner like Jason Lee. He's a family man, is adapting to the evolving job market as his customer service roles face automation. With over 15 years of work experience, his tech savvy and seeks to upskill for managerial positions in AI. So he has to balance his family life, his work life. He needs efficient, flexible learning tools for practical AI business knowledge. His goal is to understand and utilize AI for both his career advancement and to support his family, including educating. So he's got to have on-demand, content. So we created a needs list. So what does Carlos need? He needs a tutor bot. He needs reminders of when stuff is due, instant grading, flexible quizzes, collaborative studying with people at nighttime, whenever he's ready to, gamification, schedule management. And then Jason is a completely different type of learner. It's got to be on demand because he's working an 8-hour day and he's got to put his kids to bed. It's got to be efficient study tools. He also needs to be able to jump over a lot of the classes he does not need because he's lived life. He doesn't need a basic math class potentially, or maybe he does. Career transition support, family-oriented learning. He wants to learn alongside his students, his children, right? He's got to mimic the same behavior that he wants them to use during their lives. So this is how I see the future of education. And then us as educators, we need a teaching assistant. We need lesson planning, grading support, research assistant, class organization. We need content aggregation. We need to get the resources to support our students and ourselves in the learning process as we change and evolve and adapt. Collaborative pairing with other professors all over the world. Can you imagine that? We're having this kind of meeting right now, but imagine you've got a study buddy group of other educators in science, philosophy, or whatever you want. And then people that are really good at one thing, and you do it wherever you are. I mean, we're kind of doing that during the pandemic, but we stunk at it because we never thought about it. Now we got a chance to think about it. We got a new tool to help us do it better. So I could be more excited about being an educator. I got to tell you, it's just it's a game changer. So so I'm gonna kind of stop it here and return the screen to you guys, and I really am curious as to some of your ideas you might have. Are there types of learning methods like those the bowl of tape that you could imagine? James, I'm not sure if you have a connection or you might want to say a few things.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Did you have some ideas about this?
Well, I had I did my exercises with having my 3D design class in mind, where they make three-dimensional objects. And we didn't have a great deal of luck with getting the prompts to visualize objects from different viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's very good for doing two-dimensional images, but I put the prompt in, do a figure, do a standing figure, fold its arms, change its position. Can you show it from 4 different viewpoints? And the reply was, I can't do that.
Yes.
So that was a bit of an, I thought it was unusual.
The actual thing that you're trying to do, and Angel had the exact same situation. He was trying to get specific things. What you have to understand is a large language model is a complete generalist. They're not specialty things, right? There are 4 applications that are exactly what you're talking about. There's 3 in the architectural space, and there's 20 of them in the animation space. Runway, Midjourney, and some other ones are now working on not only flat images, but animated images and 3D modeling by texting to model. Also, there are many applications that take a flat figure. So you could take a photograph of a sculpture you've done, let's say, and then have it make the whole backside and the front side of it. It can do it because it's trained on that duty. So imagine large language models are only trained on text and still images up to this point. The moment that they got hold of video and audio, you got Sora that came out. So now they're looking for a database of 3D models. That's their problem. To train on something, you basically have to, it's 7 trillion words that ChatGPT was trained on. Trillion. Okay. So you throw a lot of stuff in there, and sometimes you throw in some stuff that's biased or hasn't been fact checked and whatever. So you end up with some problems, and that's kind of the thing. Now, if you take a look at Meta, what's interesting is they got late into the game, but they knew better how to smartly look at it. And there's a second phase of every model. You put all the data in there, and then you go in and you do human training. So you slap it on the wrist, literally, when it does something wrong, and when it does something right, you reward it. So there's this adversarial training network called the GAN, General Adversarial Network, where it tells you, if you've got a picture of a cat that says dog, then you train it not to do that. And that goes into, all kinds of stuff. So Meta, their version is now exceeding ChatGPT in human quality interface interaction. And then now you're adding some other stuff. There you go. Sketchfab. Yes. So Sketchfab comes from the architectural kind of sphere. And so you're just looking for a different modeling system that's based on a small language model, not a specific discipline specific one. So when we started to talk about Perplexity and why it's so good, is it's based on 5 different class models. There's one for medicine. There's one for science. There's one for ChatGPT 4 is one of them. Lambda, which is from the Meta one that we just talked about. Lambda is version 3. That's actually trained on less information, but it's smarter the way it's training. And then it's having it train itself and generating really good information. So it's just a question of finding the right tool for what you're trying to do. That's the big thing. And, the generalist model is not going to be able to do some of the things that you want to do, unfortunately. And I think in Anhil's case, what were you trying to render, Anhil? Some words? I guess that's what it was.
Yeah, originally was Word to, well, it was a graphic, but I wanted to include words, but the words, they were never rendered properly. They even not look like any language. It was like gibberish.
Well,
And then the other one with Firefly the other day was, I think I eventually found the problem. I don't know if you remember seeing that question, where I tried to mimic your guy in the suit, in the tuxedo. I think the problem was the ratio of the picture that I was using, because it was rendering like the bow tie in the face. And so like, why is the bow tie in the face?
That's
That
it.
doesn't make any sense.
That's it.
And then I kept playing and making it bigger and whatever, and eventually put it in the right place. Not similar to yours, but close enough that I was like, okay, I'm happy with that rendering.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So here is this is what's called Firefly, and this is free, by the way. So what I've done here is I've actually taken this structure, so you can see the AI image, and then I prompted sandcastle on a Palm Beach tree. I'm going to change it to art style. Then I'm going to come down here. This could be fun for you, Jim. I really think so. So you have styles, and you can browse a gallery of different styles. So let's say I want to have this done, like a, well, let's try for black and white. Why not? Let's go for that style. So style is going to pull up the color and the sort of shapes and forms. I'm picking a black and white, which will be kind of weird. And then I'm going to do an architectural style. So let me do a 3D sort of thing here. So structure says it's going to take the shape of this thing. It's going to take a style reference of a 3D thing. It's going to use an art style. And when I hit generate, it's going to use sandcastle on a palm tree beach, right? And then it's going to render specifically. Now, Anhil, if you're trying to get a person standing up, you got to do a vertical image so it can grow into that space. If you have a square image like I have in this case, then you want to start with a square object. Yeah, there you go. So this has got the palm tree. It's got that stylistic 3D sort of look. And so I can change my reference. I'll leave the reference the same, but I'm going to change the picture to now a more photographic thing. And then I'm going to go for digital art. And I can actually go for golden hour. How about that? Let's try rendering again. So now I've got an artistic style, but I'm going for a digital art looking thing. It's going to take the structure from one piece and go to the other. Now, this isn't Jim's 3D thing, but there are applications that literally do this. In fact, Adobe, oh, there you go. That's not bad. Now you've got a structure. So I can say a medieval castle. So sandcastle, medieval castle, tall spires. Go like that, render it again. And let me change it up to, let me make it a vertical image. And then let me change it to photo. And photo settings, we even have aperture. Woohoo, it's pretty cool, right? We got shutter speed. I'm going to leave that alone. And wide angle telephoto. I'm going to go for a little bit more wide angle, and then I'm going to go render it again. So now I'm getting the golden hour, which is going to give it a nice warm color tone. Then I'm going to digital art, going to photo. So we're doing this layer cake of understanding how all artworks are made. And by giving it these references that it needs to hold on to, oh, that's different. Not what I expected. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. And I'm not quite sure. Oh, tall spires. I guess maybe that's the problem. Huh, okay. So anyway, let me go back and just to kind of show you what some images I did last week. These are just a few of those. And then if we take a look at, I've got a whole demo folder over here. There's the original image. And this is a picture of an owl. Oh, and then we got the AI Institute. So this is with a motherboard. Oh, here's a sandcastle on the beach. This is where I got that idea. So it's taken the structure, then I told it photographically real, sand on the beach, sunset time, backlit. Then I got crashing waves and kept going. So, you know, the control for an artist who kind of knows what they're trying to do. So this is an owl. So this is a drawing. And I'll show you in a minute because it's kind of cool. This was an image that I got. Now I up-resed it, added lots of detail to it. There's a bunch of programs that do that. You could literally sit there for hours, and so I could actually take some of these images. Oh, that's from another class. Here is Oh, so I rendered some pictures and then used that as a starting point too. So here's just some other images that I. So you can take an image like this picture, and I could go back to Firefly, and you can look at what Firefly other people have already created. So you can go to the home screen and take a look at that. Let's see, where are we here? Yeah, here we
Now
go.
the software is free, but you got to log in, which is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, yeah, over time it's not that big a deal. And it's also on your phone, although I don't think it's a great way to use it. The other one you might try out is Acrobat, which is quite spectacular. But let's say we could come in here and we could start with a drawing like this. Now we can load this up. What's cool about it, this is, I would love to teach an art class in this, just to think about style and that kind of thing. So I'm going to take this color for a cat, yawning, eyes closed. But I'm going to go for a style reference. I'm going to make it art. And I'm going to load up a style of this owl. And I'm going to change it to an owl. But then I'm going to go change it a little bit. Wildlife scene, okay. Then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to pick up an effect like synthwave. That sounds bizarre and different. And then let's see what I get then. So then it takes that image, using that for the structure, using the owl picture, using a little bit of that other part. And now we're going off on a whole different tangent. You can sit here for days just putting your layer cake together of these different prompts and then words of your own. And then we decide, okay, so then we want to use this. Now I can use this as my style reference. And then I can go in here and say, okay, my structure reference goes away. My style reference is there. Now I want to make a dragonfly on a flower. Okay, and then I want to take my art style differently. Oh, let's give that a shot, see what it does. So I'm using that art style, but I'm not using the shape style. So I'm getting the dragonfly, hopefully, but with that artistic style that we've got there. There you go. So if you want to illustrate your next book on fireflies, Angel, here you go.
Yeah, I got to work on that.
And then we can
Because
do
I have the reference drawing, so I can use my reference drawing and say, hey,
there you
create
go.
one.
Yeah. So we could do a oh yes, exactly. So you get the structure right. That means the pose of your dragonfly would be correct.
That's right. Yeah.
Big difference, right? So I'm going to go, so the browse the gallery of styles. What would be a natural style? Do you want it to be like a watercolor kind of deal? Let's see what that does.
Yeah,
then-
that one, I think it adds a bunch of colors in the background. It was weird when I tried it. I was like,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not what I expected.
It does actually help to know a little bit about art history and different styles. They don't use, ooh,
See?
here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, but it's not what I was expecting.
Not
But
what you-
actually, that looks very natural. That one that you're holding there, that looks very
Yeah.
natural. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful one. Yeah,
Now, okay,
certainly.
so I'm going to take this one and I'm going to go back to my shape because I know what I need to do now is make it landscape because a dragonfly is not fitting in the shape and size. Do you want it to be less painterly or maybe oil or something else?
No, that looks natural.
Okay.
Try there's a green background there. Maybe you want to try that.
Ah, okay. Yeah, so you can use the style reference is going to be about color and sort of a style meaning a technique. And then the effects are the techniques. I'm sorry. The effects are the techniques and the style is the color palette pretty much. That's kind of cool. And then of course you could prompt the words better. So dragonfly and a flower, you know, kind of. But if you had the shape and the form, so your story had specific moves and positions they were in.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you could increase the visual intensity or make it more or less, and the strength the same way. So that's for the style. And
Yeah,
then,
it's very interesting because remember when DALL-E and Midjourney came originally, I tried them and I was like, what the hell is this? They were distorted, not even close to any reality of
exactly.
Firefly. I saved them just because, I was like, I don't know what Rick is talking about, but these are not. And then give it a year and look at
Well,
what a difference it does,
oh yeah. I mean, you know, well, oh my goodness. Okay, this is. Oh, it's the cat. I did the cat as a structural reference. So now that's kind of gross. Okay, well, yeah. So I'd have to have a picture of a dragonfly to do it properly. But what I have seen it do is if I said blue jay on twig. Now I've seen people just do so this picture is now going to be referencing that sketch. So you can do a sketch and then make it photoreal and do all kinds of stuff, and then you end up with exactly what you want. Oh yeah, there we go. And if I took off all these style differences and
That's
perhaps
beautiful.
made it a little bit more vertical, this might be. So let me go to take off simple, take off the bokeh effect. Oh, bokeh effect would maybe, oh, digital art, make it more photo, use the structure difference. I'm going to get rid of this style difference. Now let's see what happens. And I'm going to go to, you know, so just to be fair, when talking about OnHill, I literally have put in, I think it's 4,000 hours so far in generating images. So
Oh,
man,
I know.
I got this dialed in. So like when you come in there and you work in a couple 100,000 images, don't expect it to work like magic. It's still, even oh, there we go. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Now, what I can do here is also edit this over in Photoshop. So I can download this and then pop that into Photoshop immediately. And we're coming up on the end of our hour here. So Photoshop, I'm missing that tail on the left, right? So when I pop this open, I just go generative expand in Photoshop. So in 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing basically everything. I don't want to clear that reference out. And then there it is. And this is what Photoshop can do. So I, as a photographer, am dead meat. Oop, I did.
Yeah, I used it before with the Photoshop generative, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that's really impressive.
It's
Because
got
before
better.
to make that tail, it will take forever. You gotta make
Yeah.
a stamp, then you gotta put it over, and then you gotta make sure
Yeah.
that it matches. Now it matches automatically, and it gives you choices too. Once it
Yep.
generates, it
So
gives
I
you
like
choice. There
that
you go.
tail,
Oh my God,
that
look at that.
tail,
Yeah,
that tail.
yeah,
Ooh, that's not
yeah.
bad.
I think the first one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think a little bit.
Unless you want it to be a little longer. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I need to get the tip of it just to have my
Yeah.
composition. And that puts the eyeball the rule of thirds position. And then I could go in there and select that and adjust the background. I mean, so what
You can also, there you go, mimic the background. Yeah.
Yep. And then if I want to make the background even more out of focus, I could certainly do that. So I've got, so in 2 more episodes, I'm going to do one on just all the applications and what the possibilities are. And hopefully by then things have settled down, because it's just too much going on. I mean, the possibilities are just literally insane. Object selection right now. So it will know. Let me drop these down into one layer. There's the animal. So now I'm going to make a layer mask, but I'm going to put it, and I could generate a background for it. Or I can jump this up, then I can reverse the process, and I can then go and I should have done this differently, but let's see how this goes. Delete. Okay, so I could either, I'm going to go to this background, go up here and blur it a little bit, or actually I'll go into camera raw. So I can make this background just a little bit darker, and the highlights, crush it down. Then I can go my effects and dehaze, take off clarity, take off the background. And then when I hit OK, oops, there we go. So I've actually made this in focus, and I made the background completely different. And I could go in there and you know, select in the background and modify that. So select the subject, or I could actually select the background. So yeah, the possibilities are just insane. And there's, you know, I don't have to sit there for 12 hours in the hot sun to get that photograph of a blue jay. Now, you know, biologically, that's probably not perfect. It ain't bad though. I think the coloring there is wrong on the shoulder. But if I knew, you know, if I was a wildlife photographer, I'm very critical. I've been doing a lot of underwater photographs, which it doesn't do well at all. Yeah, that's but you know, I'm doing stuff that's just crazy off the chain that I've generated probably 100,000 images in, well, no, I've generated 300,000 images using Midjourney alone. And in a good year, I would have shot maybe 10,000 with film or digital even, you know, so it's kind of a crazy place that we are in right now.
You know, I look at a blue jay, it's very close to it, and it's like, probably if you put them end to end, you can tell them apart.
Yeah. Oh, here's the guy that was talking about he laid off 90% of his support staff. So why'd you do this? It seemed a little brutal. It's not, I think. It's like brutal if you think like a human. I'm like, if you think like a human, oh my goodness. So yeah, Tyler Perry, you know, shut down his $100 million project to build a studio because of Sora. He said, if Sora can do that, why do I need to build an $800 million studio expansion? You know, so yeah, so I've been doing some deep diving. This is we'll clone your voice in 10 seconds. I mean, everybody's got something else going on. It's the question of, you know, what we do with it. These are the things that we need to think about as educators. You know, let's have a relationship with them that really, you know, goes off and privileges it. And this is how fast it's going. I mean, you know, printing press, telescope, hundreds and hundreds of years, and then we get the Windows, and then we get the iPhones, iPads.
See, my only concern with this, although you're very optimistic about the
Yes.
socialization of education,
Yeah.
is that in order to get many of the advantages of this, you need technology. And one of the things that some of the faculty members in the AI Institute were discussing is that
Yeah.
even though we expect the younger generation to be technologically advanced, they may or may not. And that's a flip of a coin. And the other is, you need the hardware. Without the hardware, you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, I think that's one of the limiting factors of the promising of AI.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that it's all done in the cloud now, and it's on your phone. So almost every student has a phone. And if not, we saw during the pandemic that laptops came out of the sky all of a sudden, and all of a sudden internet companies made it internet free. You know, all these models, everything I've been showing you so far, there's free versions of all of it. So accessibility at the moment is insanely good. So here's a drawing that gets turned into that literally by just using Firefly. So this was just yeah, these are all the stuff. Oh, I love this commercial for this is Dove Beauty. It says, "Will not stop until beauty is a source of happiness." So they said, imagine using Midjourney, obviously, the most beautiful woman in the world, and then they said, according to Real Beauty Campaign, these are the real ones. So it's a time to kind of think about things like personal ethics and policies, and and align ourselves appropriately for using it in ways that privilege that part of our students. That so the reason why I'm optimistic is that I am a very responsible person. I am optimistic. I'm hoping that I start to inspire people, that you start to think about where the problems are. So there's not I don't want to be over optimistic, and so but I the example that I gave with Sebastian, I think, is really on point. These are things I did 3 years ago, just to give you an idea, or 2 years, a year ago. This is what I was doing. Some of this is more recent. This is 6 months ago. This is Firefly. So, you can learn how to use it. And then the trick is those creative ways. That bowl of tape thing, I think, is genius. I've been trying to break up all these things into some very simple metaphorical way of looking at it. Even the multidisciplinary outline that I'm suggesting is just a starting point, you know? And if you guys have any other ideas of ways, I think my best way to be able to be an effective educator is to simplify in my head to such a point where I've got a structure that I can then bend to the will of the need. As an educator, I think being creative has never been more important. And I think for people, it's never been more important to be creative. I was thinking a lot about my friends that are painters and incredible drawing, So Sebastian's skills, he could draw and he could make a living doing that. Does he need to? Yeah, I think so, because the structure of his T-Rex had to be based upon something, and he had to build that thing. There was hundreds of hours involved in that. So, Sebastian, how long do you think you took to work on that project?
Well, for the T-Rex that I made, let's just say it was just about last year that I made a drawing of that, and I knew that I was going to use it, so that's why I saved it for a special occasion. And so I brought it out and used it, and then refined it and add a little detail, and then and there it is.
And then you had to create all the other ones too. Now, always what we do as students in this particular class is that you look for reference images. And the trick is not to steal anybody else's great image, but you've got a picture of the scientific outline of a brain of a T-Rex. You got to use that as at least a template. But you still got to put clothes on it. You still got to pick a color palette. You still got to pick some topography. Then you got to figure out how the type goes, where that goes. There's a ton of 1,000 different choices that you make to get to what you ended up with, which is a really quality ending result. And so in no way is that cheating. It's not using the system to kind of fool it, and to come up with things. And I mean, the kind of stuff that I'm doing just illustrative wise, in a million years, I couldn't draw any of these things. And all of a sudden, and then I can up-res it too, which is a whole new thing. It actually adds detail as it up-reses. So I'm experimenting in ways, and as a photographer, kind of the thing is, you do a billion different pictures, but you only release certain ones. That signature worthy literally came from my acts as a photographer. Only a few pictures make to the front page of the Miami Herald. So photography is about editing what you shoot. It's about how you shoot it, and it's pre-visualization, visualization, and post-visualization, which is an entire process, and then it's choosing and decision making. These are all extremely human things. Could AI help the process? Maybe a little bit, but it ain't gonna do the job for you of making those decisions. And what we need to do as educators is find ways to help them make different kinds of image choices. This was sort of interesting. So These bodies had no faces, no bodies at all. And there was a application called Magnifique that put all the bodies and nipples and everything else on these. So this was a 1 megabyte file. It's now 100 megabytes with all the detail that you see there. So there are applications that are actually adding detail after the fact. So even if you have something low res, you can go up to higher resolution and actually get something that looks like a real thing. And this is Palazzo and Montanari. So this is an actual based on a real place. I have no idea what the real place looks like. I don't know. Oh, he's not with us anymore. But yeah, I mean, it kind of amazed me. Hieronymus Bosch was one of the things I used here. And then I up-resed it with a couple different applications, and I'm experimenting with all these other applications to make these kinds of images. But it's like wherever my imagination goes. I mean, still getting there, I got to tell you, is a selection process. And then is that what I want to represent me? So it's choosing, right? All life is about choosing, but I've got more choices than I've ever had before. And then I would go, if I like this so much, I would take that eyeball, or maybe I'd leave it because this is creepy as heck. But I'm more this kind of guy. And I'm just intrigued that, you know, I can't paint or draw. I can make photographs, and I know what makes a good photograph. So it's like being Steven Spielberg, and you just got to surround yourself with the best cinematographers, clothing designers, script writers that punch up the ideas. You know, I think all knowledge in some way is now a collaboration with other people. And one of our collaborators is this AI with the ability to potentially, you know, be another collaborator. We got to decide where we draw the line, you know. Would I sell this on a t-shirt, coffee mug, if I thought it would sell? Yeah. Am I going to sign my name to it? No, not unless I feel like it represents something I have to say. It's still me as an artist going that next direction and telling that story. But I'm starting at a much higher level. And so my output, even if I wanted to make this photograph, you know what it would take to put that together? I mean, you couldn't physically make that photograph or this one or illustration, but my imagination is rich, you know, from playing out in the woods and being, that's my other worry, is the artists of tomorrow, are they going to have this knowledge? You know, I've studied art history and taken 10 classes in art history through the years. My favorite one actually was cinema photography. It was movies, photography, and art history all combined. And it was a multidisciplinary in the art world, comparing photography to painting to, you know, to the movie and cinema. And that's where I kind of found my interest in that. So you got to have some intentionality in making art. You know, I go into water with women and photograph them wearing fabrics, sort of like this, because I was interested in women and water being the source of all life of human life on the planet. And there seemed like a natural place for me to celebrate both simultaneously, and we have not taken care of both. So my human story is to tell that story of how we have vilified and we've ruined both our relationships with women on this planet, and they gave us birth, and with the water and our environment. And so that's a social statement that AI has no interest in making, but I do. I do believe in the beauty of women and the idea that you should celebrate life. I believe in that idea of Spinoza's religion, his God, right? That
Yeah, I like that.
when I filmed a whale shark being sonogrammed by a scientist underwater, I was in heaven. I was literally transported outside my body to a world I couldn't imagine. And when she came back and showed a sonogram with 200 whale sharks inside the stomach from one insemination, and then she was able to extrapolate that some of them were eating each other, and it took over 6 months for her to give birth to all of them. And it was in one trip from north to south. And so I happened to have gone to Cocos off of Costa Rica. Then I went to the Galapagos Islands, not realizing this. And then I went to Socorro off Mexico. And that's the underwater superhighway. And I saw in Cocos that during the pandemic, the Chinese fishing vessels came in there and raped the waters surrounding Cocos. And then the next year, Sylvia Earle, together with the UN, declared it a hope spot. and they extended the protection borders of Costa Rica so that will never happen again. And what happened is we lost a generation of animals that headed south to go give birth in the southern part of South America. And that year, the pandemic, that generation never came to fruition. Now, whale sharks are not hunted, so they were probably safe, but the other animals that were almost to extinction. That's what we're doing with all the sharks, you know? But it's what we don't know that kills us. And now we have another weapon in fighting that war of knowledge, so that what we don't know doesn't have to be what we don't know. When I was in Bali scuba diving, and there was a hand grenade thrown in the water right next to us, it almost killed us. And we got up, and the people I was with, thank God, were actually the Marine police, because they had asked the government for the ability to do that, arrested the man, then put him through re-education camp. The company I was with was Wakatobi. They own an exclusive resort right in the middle of the Coral Triangle, and they basically provide the schooling and the education and the water and the electricity to over 3,000 islanders, and they tell them not to fish. They pay them not to fish so that their resort can be maintained, and they educate their children, provide them everything. So that's what humans can do as stewards. But they didn't know that throwing in we saw places that were bombed out where there was no coral at all, and not a possibility of 1,000 years there ever being coral again. And they didn't realize they were cutting off their own food supply source. And it would take a couple generations or one generation, all of a sudden they got nothing to fish. And so they would come over to these Wakatobi waters, and now they became the police for that area. So it's sort of interesting to see that happening as the children. So the other group I was working with, and so all the photographs I gave to K through 12 education, the Minister of Education I met personally. And then I worked with another woman who during the pandemic took 40 groups of 40 children, school-age kids, snorkeling to see what their heritage was under the water. None of them had been under the water. Their parents had not been under, so they were throwing plastic at record numbers. Within 2 years, they stopped it, and they realized all the money that they had came from tourists coming to scuba dive in their priceless garden. So it's what we don't know. So if we can extend our knowledge to everybody, if education can be a gift for all, a birthright, we can really change this place, this planet that we live on, that we abuse.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, amigo. I
Yeah.
gotta go, so we'll see you mañana.
Me too. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all. And anytime
Take
you
care.
want, I'm here. Thank you. It's your blessing. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Rick. See you guys.
Good night. Thanks, Sebastian. I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome, Professor. Anytime.
All right. Take care. Talk to you later.
You too. See you next.